How is it, YouTube? It's AJK Boy back here with another video, and today I'm gonna be reacting to. Hold on. Okay, I fixed it. How goes it, YouTube? It is AJK Boy back here with another video, and today I'm gonna be reacting to top 5 horror movies inspired by true haunted dolls. Well, I think it's True Haunted Things. This is by Top 5's channel. Make sure to go check them out, subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, because those really help. I don't know why. I just like hearing people's comments, so I know what to do next time. And here we go.
Along the line, what you're about to sit down and watch happened, or a similar event took place, makes things so much more intense. And although with films there is a fine line between a true story and completely made up, there are countless films that use the base on a true story status to spark people's interest, whether that's a paranormal event that has taken place or an infamous murder. Well, here are 5 successful movies that were based on or inspired by true stories. Sit back and enjoy. An American Haunting. American Haunting was released in 2006 and tells the story of a family haunted by an entity that focuses on the youngest daughter. The film is billed as based on true events, so let's talk about the real story of the Bell Witch. In early 1800, John Bell and his family settled in Tennessee, and one day in 1817, when inspecting his cornfield, John encountered a deformed-looking animal with the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit that disappeared after he shot it. That evening, the Bell family heard strange beating noises coming from outside, and the Bell children complained that something was pulling.
Really? Sorry, you probably can't see my face. Where's my face? But really? This was inspired by 2 scary movies? The Blair Witch Project and American Stories or something? No, it's not American Horror Story. No! But really?
At their bed covers and throwing their pillows in the night. Bell's youngest daughter Betsy was also waking up with slap marks and welts on her face and body. As the locals became aware of the activity and the supposed entity responsible, it became known as the Bell Witch. Over time, the Bell Witch's taunting turned to John and even threatened to kill him. Eventually, he became increasingly unwell, and the entity mercilessly taunted him throughout his illness, apparently cursing and shouting from around their home. On December the 20th, 1820, John succumbed to his mysterious illness, and after his death, the family found a small vial of poison in the cupboard. Apparently, as they picked up the poison, a voice was heard saying that it gave old Jack a big dose of it, which sorted him right out. After John's funeral, the Bell Witch's presence was almost non-existent, but a year later, it visited John's widow and told her it would return in 7 years. As promised, it reappeared in 1828, and after hanging around for 3 weeks, it said it would return to Bell's nearest descendant in 107 years, which would be in 1935. That descendant was Dr. Charles Bailey Bell, and although he wrote a book about the Bell Witch and the supposed hauntings it caused his family, it's unclear if he got the promised visit. Nowadays, the Bell Witch is still remembered and is often blamed for unexplainable manifestations in and around the area of the old Bell family farm, as well as sounds of children playing, candles flickering, and malfunctions of electrical equipment. This was all the American Haunting creators needed for the inspiration behind the movie, which they have stated before is based on the Bell Witch entity. Child's Play. The first Child's Play film was released in 1988 and told the story of a fictional serial killer known as Charles Lee Ray. While on the run from police, he is mortally wounded, but before he dies, he takes cover in a toy store where he uses a voodoo ritual to transfer his soul into a talking doll. I'm sure if you're a horror fan, you have seen it, so I won't go into details, but the doll is called Chucky and is acquired by a 6-year-old boy and basically goes on a murderous killing spree. It was followed by a further 6 movies, with rumours of another in 2017. And although subsequent films have been somewhat ridiculed, it's long been said that Chucky is based on a real-life cursed doll known as Robert. Robert was given to Florida artist Robert Gene Otto in 1906 when he was just 6 years old. It was strange looking, being handmade with a wire frame, old clothing, straw, and apparently Gene's own hair, by one of his family's servants. The servant who made the doll was grieving the loss of her own child at the time, and was resentful of Otto's family, claiming they had mistreated her. It was also thought that she was skilled in black magic and voodoo, and put a spell on the doll. Gene became obsessed with his new toy, and was often seen having conversations with it, nothing too out of the ordinary for a child of his age. But as he grew up, the doll became his best friend, and the Otto family would report it giggling and walking around the family.
Okay, so you understand. So far, there's no black people in here. Because black people are smart. They have brains. They have brains. You never heard of a story of this black... You never heard of a story... There's never been a story so far in this scary video about any black kid messing with any voodoo magic or anything. No. That's why they're smart. And I don't know why I'm saying this, because there's like mostly white people in here and I'm white. I'm gonna try to figure out how to edit that out. Let's go.
He's home. Gene went on to become a well-known artist, and visitors to his house, along with his wife, told stories of the doll's strange behaviour. After Gene died in 1974, Robert was banished to the attic and not seen for a while. When the house was sold, the new owner, Myrtle Reuter, discovered Robert and soon became attached to him. She even took him with her when she moved 6 years later. However, in 1994, Robert was donated to the Fort East Martello Museum, as she claimed he was haunted and was moving around the house by himself. A few months later, Myrtle passed away. Initially, Robert was not on display, but as visitors learned that he was housed at the museum and kept inquiring, he was put in a cabinet for the public to view. Almost immediately, visitors experienced problems with their cameras and electronic devices if they tried to photograph him. And letters started to arrive at the museum addressed to Robert, asking for forgiveness for being disrespectful to him, as they were experiencing nothing but trouble after their visit. Robert began to draw the attention of ghost hunters and psychics, with many believing that Robert, much like Chucky, had been joined by the spirit of his lifelong partner Gene, and that was and still is the reason for his strange behaviour. Despite not being linked to any deaths or serious accidents, all of the stories surrounding Robert sparked the imagination for the people behind Child's Play, and a crazy killer doll called Chucky was born. Borderland. Based in Mexico, this 2007 horror film starts with 3 college students who head out for the weekend on a well-earned break from their studies. But one of them goes missing, and it turns out he's been kidnapped by a cult to be used in a ritual sacrifice.
Ooh.
The horrific and violent scenes that follow as the students try to rescue their friend are pretty intense, and the gore level is certainly there. But what's even worse is the fact it's based on the real story of Adolfo Constanzo. Constanzo was born in Miami in 1962, but grew up in Puerto Rico, where he was baptized Catholic and was also an altar boy. However, from a young age, he accompanied his mother on trips to Haiti to learn voodoo. And after the family moved back to Miami, Constanzo became an apprentice to a local sorcerer and got involved in a religion called Palo Mayacum, which practices in animal sacrifice. As an adult, Constanzo moved to Mexico City, where he set up a profitable business casting spells to bring good luck, which would often involve sacrifices of more exotic animals, like zebras, lion cubs, and snakes. As he gained in popularity, his clients became wealthy drug dealers, hitmen, and high-ranking members of the Mexican society, all of which started demanding more extreme rituals and violence, and Constanzo began raiding graveyards for human bones that he mixed in his cauldron. But it wasn't long before he needed fresher humans.
What?
He was soon involved with several corrupt police officers and powerful drug cartels, and became convinced his rituals and spells were responsible for the success of them, demanding they pay him more. One family, the Casados, rejected to pay the extra payment, and 7 members of their family disappeared. They were later found dismembered, with their toes, ears, brain, fingers, and spine missing. In the years that followed, Constanzo moved to a remote ranch in the desert, where lots of his sadistic ritual murders were carried out. For example, in 1989, Constanzo's hitmen abducted student Mark Kilroy, and shortly after, Constanzo murdered him, saying Kilroy had been murdered as a good, superior human brain was required for one of his potions. Constanzo fled to Mexico City, where the police finally caught up with him, and he was shot dead by one of his cult members at his request. The total death count on Constanzo's hands for the pure use of the rituals is believed to be as high as 70.
We have 2 more.
The Strangers. This horror film, starring Liv Taylor and Scott Speedman, centers on the pair who are relentlessly stalked by a trio of faceless madmen. There is no apparent motive for the terror these killers inflict on the couple within the walls of their own home, and the suspense and scare factor has led many to say this is an underrated masterpiece. In the opening credits, it states the plot is inspired by true events, and its director, Brian Bertino, has admitted it's loosely based on a few different incidents, one of which happened to him during his childhood when strangers knocked on his door when his parents were out, and asked to speak to someone who didn't live there. They left, but it later transpired that most of the homes in the neighbourhood had been broken into that night, and the people who knocked the door were responsible. This stuck with Brian, as he knew the strangers could have done anything to him whilst his parents were out, and the fact they robbed several houses that night means he came face to face with people who were not afraid to break the law. But Bertino has also mentioned the Manson family murders that we all know about was another inspiration for the film, and also the lesser-known Keddie Cabin murders, which I talked about in depth in this video, if you want to find out more about that. Basically, a family were brutally killed in their cabin in Plumas County, California, and despite a huge investigation, to date, the case is unsolved, and with no real motive, and the attacks taking place in the family's own home, this tragic true crime has chilling similarities to The Strangers. Wolf Creek. This Australian horror film was released in 2005, and tells the story of 3 young backpackers, Ben, Kirsty, and Liz, who returned from a hike in Wolf Creek National Park in the Australian outback, only to find that their car won't start. When a friendly bushman turns up and offers to help, they gladly accept. But after he tows their car to his camp and they stay the night, they soon realise this guy is anything but their friend. After being drugged, they are all kidnapped and the 2 girls die, with Ben being the only one who manages to survive. At the end of the movie, the end card makes you believe the story is real, and the tone and the way the film was marketed as based on true events unsettled backpackers in Australia into believing there was still a feral madman wandering in the outback. But how true to life was this film, and what actual event was it based on? While it's thought the director based the psychopathic bushman on a real-life tour guide he had met some years earlier, but it's said that the real-life Australian killer Ivan Milat had a heavy influence on the movie's plot. Milat was found guilty of killing 7 people and the attempted murder and imprisonment of another, although he may have murdered many more in what was called the backpacker killings. Milat's first victims were British backpackers Caroline Clark and Joanne Walters. Their bodies were found in Belanglo State Forest after they had been reported missing 4 months earlier. Joanne had been repeatedly stabbed with an unusual injury to her spine, and Caroline had been stabbed and shot in the head 10 times. A primitive fireplace and cigarette butts were also discovered near the scene. No progress was made in finding the killer. Then in 1993, 2 more bodies were found. They were missing backpackers James Gibson and Deborah Everest. The spinal injuries to the couple and the same primitive fireplace nearby convinced police they were dealing with the same killer. An extensive search of Belanglo Forest was conducted, and it took almost a month to uncover any other bodies, when a female German hitchhiker was found who had been missing since 1991. Then, just 3 days later, the bodies of a further 2 German backpackers were found. Milat was finally arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Wolf Creek is also incredibly similar, although not thought to have been inspired by the Australian 2001 killing, where a British couple who were travelling through the Australian outback were told to pull over by a mechanic named Bradley John, who shot one of them and kidnapped the other, who thankfully managed to escape. The film was in fact delayed its release in Northern Australia because of the Bradley trial. So it's safe to say that if you watch Wolf Creek, it's one of those films where almost exactly what you see has unfortunately taken place, and hopefully will not, but could, happen again. So that's 5 horror movies that were inspired by real events. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon in the next video.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was a long as hell video, but it was also the most weirdest video I ever saw and the most gut-wrenching video I ever saw, and it was the most longest. Make sure to like and subscribe. You don't need to watch the whole thing because it's so freaking long, but it's pretty gut-wrenching. for me and scary. See you next time. As always, AJK boy, stay cool out there.